Welcome to Midlife Initiation. I'm David Evans, speaking to you again from my car outside our little guy's tennis practice. Wow, it is warm here in California. It's winter and it's basically been 90 degrees. Amazing. Um, all right, so today we are going to talk about the victim mask, the first mask of inferiority. So I'm going to kick off reading an excerpt from my upcoming book, Midlife Initiation. And this chapter is called The Victim Projects Blame. And we're going to start with From Hero to Victim, a flip fable told by Chase. I was the fintech savage, a total financial animal. I wasn't born into tech. I didn't graduate from Stanford or spin out of McKinsey. I was a dropout from a community college in Sacramento with a chip on my shoulder the size of a Series E. But I could sell. I had the jawline of a street fighter and the instincts of a wolf. And I had an idea no one else believed in, a no-fee banking platform for blue-collar Americans, with a rewards model that flipped the whole industry on its head. I bootstrapped the thing from a rented garage, maxed out 5 credit cards, and slept in my Model 3. I ran on caffeine and revenge fantasies. I closed our seed round from a single whiteboard pitch and a spreadsheet I'd memorized because I was going to win. 3 years later, we were the fastest growing fintech startup in history. We weren't just a unicorn, we were a myth. Investors called me the builder. Reporters called me the maverick. My team called me Chase. But not casually. Chase was a brand. Chase was a force. Chase was the one who got us here. I led with loyalty. You were in or you were out. You got it or you didn't. I liked you or I didn't. I didn't have time for nuance. We moved fast. We crushed. We made history. But history has a way of catching up. By the time we hit 1,000 employees, something shifted. I couldn't be everywhere anymore. The culture started to fray. New hires didn't understand the Chase way. So the board brought in someone to help me scale. Enter Michelle, Harvard MBA, 3-time COO, all velvet and steel. She was polite, poised, deadly effective. First, I liked her. She knew how to clean up a cap table, negotiate a vendor, manage a crisis. But soon I noticed something unsettling. People started going to her instead of me. Engineers, product leads, even my CFO. She didn't grandstand or demand credit. She just listened, made people feel seen, and gave them back their power. She was a multiplier, the real deal. Liz Wiseman would have cried, and I hated her for it. The board started referencing her more in meetings. Journalists wanted to profile her. One board member told me she's the adult in the room. I tried to get that board member fired the next day, but it was too late. Michelle had become the shadow leader and eventually the real one. The board asked me to step down. Founder transitions are normal, they said. You've done the impossible, Chase. It's time to evolve. I smiled, thanked them, walked out with my sunglasses on, my inner circle trailing behind. But I didn't let go. I had loyalists in the company, people who owed me their stock, their start, their identity. I whispered, I undermined. I questioned Michelle's strategy in Slack threads and investor calls. I spun narratives. She doesn't understand the GDM. She's soft. She's risk averse. Eventually, she stepped down. Morale tanked. The valuation cratered. We missed 3 quarters in a row, and the company that was once poised to unseat JP Morgan was sold for 1/10 of its peak to that older rival we used to mock. My name disappeared from the website. Chase was now just the end of our parent company's name, a ghost. At home, the collapse hit harder. My wife said she didn't recognize me anymore, said I couldn't love her unless she was clapping. She said I only saw people in 2 categories, fans or threats. I scoffed. Then I cried. Then I raged. The victim became the villain. I said things I can't take back. Words that burned down whatever was left of our marriage. I'm living alone now in a shitty apartment in the San Francisco Civic Center, right near the Chase Bank, plotting my revenge. I still think about Michelle, how she led, how she never made it about her, how she saw what I couldn't. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder, what if I had let her teach me? To be rewritten. Debriefing the victim flip. Animated by desire for revenge, the victim mask carries with it an inferiority complex of the heart, which seems unable to produce emotions other than fear, hate, and paranoia. At the same time, you become overly reactive in the gut, your will. Victim is the mask of paranoid survival. It doesn't just feel like the world is hard, it feels like the world is actively against you. Everyone is predatory. Everything is a threat. The fundamental belief is I am always under attack. And this experience, when sustained, calcifies into identity. I am a victim. The victim mask isn't merely born of being victimized. Many people live through some form of harm, abuse, and/or injustice and don't make an ego out of it. The victim mask is on when suffering becomes who you are, when paranoia becomes the lens and the nervous system stays in high alert, ready to lash out or shut down. This mask is about powerlessness as an identity, and looking through the victim ego tunnel, the only way to regain power appears to be through blame, rage, or cruelty. The anger here is different from the hero's drive. The hero wants power. The victim just wants the suffering to stop and lashes out from that place. And when you're in this state, it's incredibly hard to see clearly because the pattern tells you you're not just hurting, you've always been this way, that you're somehow inherently wrong, broken, unlovable. That's the lie at the heart of this path. No one is inherently broken, not from birth, not ever. We are born whole. And even in this dark, distorted state, there's something intact inside. Awareness, even dimly flickering, is the beginning of that wholeness re-emerging. The work here begins with owning the mask without shame. Just naming it like I did with my coach. I'm playing the victim right now. And from there, offering compassion, not bypassing, not sugarcoating, just the steady, simple act of telling yourself, I am not bad. I am not wrong. I am not alone. That's the start of the victim path to freedom. In Chase's story, we see how the victim mask can emerge after the hero has burned out. What begins as drive, a belief that I alone can fix this, becomes obvious suffering when reality stops mirroring his grand self-image. For Chase, the glory days of founding a record-breaking fintech company were built on raw will, grit, and dominance. He was a one-man movement fueled by caffeine and conviction. But when his leadership style stopped working, when the board replaced him, something inside cracked. The identity he'd constructed around heroism, Chase the builder, the maverick, the fintech savage, no longer held. And that's when the flip happens. When the hero falls, he can fall into any one of the lower masks: victim, vampire, or zombie. Because if I'm not the one who saves everyone, then I must be the one who was wronged or lacking or spent. If I'm not the hero, the savior, the founder king, then I must be the betrayed, the exiled, the dead. The board turned on Chase. His team followed another. His wife pulled away, and he didn't know how to feel the pain, only how to weaponize it. This is a classic arc of hero ego structure flip into victim mask. The grandiosity flips into self-pity, and from there into self-sabotage. The hurt becomes vendetta. The pain becomes a weapon. And soon the victim is doing harm. It's a fast slide from victim to perpetrator. This happens in organizations. It happens in marriages. In Chase's personal life, we see the most painful part of the flip, his inability to let love in. His wife told him plainly that she no longer felt seen, that unless she was clapping, she didn't exist. He couldn't hear it. He didn't care because he didn't know how to care unless it might lead to adulation. The final fall, where the victim becomes the villain, is malice born of unprocessed grief. The rage that lashes out is an infantile cry. Why won't you love me anymore? But there's another ending. We'll debrief that when we discuss the victim path to freedom. And that's it for today. Next week, we'll explore the next Mask of Inferiority, one in which you desperately devour everything and anything to fill the void. Vampire Mask. See you next time.